For the past couple of years, I've worked on Uber Eats during winter break. College lets out for a whole month, and Uber Eats is the easiest work to do without having to go through job interviews and all that stuff. Besides, I didn't work during school, so this was something simple to pick up on the holidays. It was a few weeks out from Christmas when this happened. This night, it was snowing pretty heavily, but I really couldn't be picky with what day to work, since I only had the set amount of time off to make enough money to last until the next break. I borrowed my dad's pickup truck and started driving. The snow must have kept a lot of other drivers home because I was getting orders all night, big ones too, the kind that pay a lot. I did this for probably a good 3 hours, and then an order came in to pick up from a drive-thru place. The house was 20 minutes from me, but the tip and everything was really good. There honestly wasn't anything unusual or off about this order, it was just like any other. I picked it up and went on my way to the house. From a quick look at the map, it looked like it was in a pretty nice neighborhood on the other side of the county. I'd been around there before, but not really inside the neighborhoods. By this time, it was 11 p.m. and a lot of snow had started to stack up on the roads. I was also getting tired, so I agreed with myself that this would be the last delivery, and then I'd go home and work again tomorrow. Once I got to the neighborhood, I drove through the street and looked at the houses as I passed by. They were all huge and had a ton of land between each of them, but none of the houses seemed to be very new. They had that typical older mansion style of basically just being really large and nothing else. Anyway, it took a while to get to the address I was supposed to deliver to. The driveway was covered in at least a foot of snow, so I parked on the road while I got out and walked up to the house, getting snow all over my pants and shoes. I noticed no lights were on in the windows, and there was a piece of paper taped to the front door. Once I got up to the porch, I took a closer look. On the top of the page, it said "Notice" in big red font. In the first few lines, it stated it was issued by the county. But before I got too far in, I heard footsteps crunching in the snow behind me. I turned around, seeing a man approaching me, coming from around the garage. He had a short buzz cut and was wearing a dirty jacket. "Just dropping off your order," I said to break the silence. But the man continued walking up without saying anything. Once he was a few feet away, I could tell there was something off about him. I guess it was just a gut feeling. He looked at me with cold and tired eyes, then held his hand out for the bag. I reached over and gave it to him, but he didn't move. He was standing right on the path leading to the driveway, and as the seconds passed, I realized how completely strange it was for him to even be out here, and even more so that he wasn't heading inside now that he had the bag. "Have a good night, sir," I said, stepping to the side and starting to walk past him. The man stayed where he was before abruptly turning, and in the corner of my eye, it looked like he swung his arm out as if trying to grab me. I stumbled back and faced him as he began stepping toward me, saying,
"Come with me,"
while reaching his hand out. I kept moving back as fast as I could in the thick snow, and the man continued to chase me, yelling at me to stop running. Once I got a good footing, I was able to outrun him and get in my car, backing out before he even had the chance to get to me. As I drove off, I looked in my mirror and saw the man standing in the driveway and just watching. I called the cops once I was out of the neighborhood, but the man was already gone. Later that night though, they told me that the house wasn't currently owned by anyone at the moment, which I assumed the note on the door had something to do with. What the man was trying to do is unknown, but that whole situation has put me on edge whenever I pull up to a house with all the lights off, wondering if it might be the same man. I worked at a Papa John's in my town about 2 years ago while I was taking online classes in college. I don't think anybody actually wants to work at a Papa John's, let alone any fast food place, but they were flexible with my availability due to having school on the weekdays. I worked 3 days a week, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, all of which I did closing shifts as the delivery driver. I'm sure you all know the basic gist of it, but I pretty much waited in the store for orders to come in that would deliver 1 or 2 at a time. Our location of Papa John's wasn't always that busy. I spent most of my time hanging out in the back and talking to my coworkers, just waiting for the clock to run down. Just past 11, a call came in. My coworker answered it and put in the order, then quickly got it in the oven, and not long after, I was taking it out to deliver. The address was a normal 10 minutes away, inside a neighborhood of mid-sized homes. I pulled up their driveway and quickly got the pizza, then walked up to the front door. I was about to ring the doorbell until I noticed a sheet of paper taped to the door. On it was a handwritten message saying, "Do not knock or use doorbell." I reread it multiple times over, thinking it must be telling me to do one or the other, but no, it said to not do either. It was a brand new piece of paper too, so I knew the sign had to be for me, but what was I supposed to do? I pulled out my phone and called the number on the order. It rang once, then I heard a ringtone coming from inside the house. It was quiet and muffled, probably coming from the back of the house somewhere, but after only a few rings, it stopped. I looked down on my phone, and the call had been denied. Strangely though, I didn't hear anyone or see any movement in the windows. I leaned in closer to the door to try to listen more intently. It was quiet, no sounds at all, until suddenly chaotic footsteps loudly sprinted down the stairs, shaking the entire house and running straight to the front door. I stepped away and tried to act natural, but the sudden aggression of sound had me a bit startled. A few seconds passed without them opening the door, but I knew the person was right on the other side, assuming he was looking at me through the peephole. I got a bit more unnerved. I don't know if something was going on or just a gut instinct, but something told me that this was wrong. Looking around the other houses, the whole neighborhood was dark, with only a handful of lights on throughout the whole street, giving my feelings more sense to them. Then the door swung open. "I have your pizza here from Papa John's," I said. The man gave me an empty look, then took the box from my hands. Immediately after, a loud thump resonated through the hallway inside the house. I looked past the man, but the house was too dark to see much of anything, and only a moment later, the door was slammed in my face. I heard him lock it, then quickly run down the hallway, and then it was silent again. I waited for a minute and listened, but after hearing no further sounds, I went back to my car and drove away. I parked in a nearby store parking lot and called the police to do a wellness check on that house. I wasn't sure of anything, but I didn't want to risk not reporting it. I got a call later that night saying they didn't find anything to worry about. Strangely, they said only the man lived there, but someone else had to have been there to make that sound I heard, which was also where I heard the phone ringing from. Nothing more came of it, but I still think on what exactly happened that night. It could have just been a strange man and nothing more, but it's the possibility of it being something else that keeps me up at night. I picked up my first job this year as a delivery driver for Pizza Hut. I'm 16, so this was only a part-time job that I did after school a couple of days a week. I chose Pizza Hut though, because it's not that busy nowadays, and I didn't want to have a job I was stressing out all the time at. The first months passed with nothing of interest. It was a very boring and repetitive job that left most days forgettable. But then I had one experience that I'll never forget. It was a Friday, and we got an order in just before closing. The address wasn't too far, but it went through a part of town that I almost never went to. This neighborhood was different from the rest, not having tons of houses or stores in it, which gave me no reason to ever go there. While driving through, I kept checking the GPS as it took me all the way through the neighborhood, turning down seemingly every road until it finally said I arrived. But something was off. On my left was a row of maybe 6 or 7 houses, and on the right was a path leading to a park. The waypoint on the GPS was showing up on the right side, so I double-checked by searching the address on Google, and it was the actual address of the park. I parked on the side of the road and picked up the pizza, getting out and walking up to the path. With a better look, I could see that it was just a walking path, not leading to any sort of playground or anything, which is where I expected to see a group of kids that had ordered a pizza, but instead, there was a guy sitting on a bench a little ways down, waving at me. I started walking over, still a bit unsure about it. As I got closer, he stood up and started sifting through his wallet for cash. The fact that he was alone on a walking path at night and, for some reason, needed a pizza delivered here was odd to say the least, so I was skeptical when I went up and greeted him. We began exchanging everything, but during the interaction, the guy started talking to himself, repeating the same phrases like, "I'm okay and everything's going to be okay," which made me feel like I kind of needed to ask him if he was okay. He stopped talking and looked up at me. In his eyes, I saw fear and helplessness, something that I don't think I'd ever truly seen in someone's look before. His look alone sent a surge of adrenaline rushing through me, and I turned around only to be met by a tall man wearing a cloth mask over his face. He held me at knife point and screamed at me to empty my pockets and toss everything on the ground. I quickly did as he said and only became more terrified when he started to forcefully push both me and the guy from the bench off the path and into the woods, leaving everything on the ground and showing no interest in any of it. We walked for a few minutes, going well into the woods, far enough to no longer see the light of the path. Then the guy next to me suddenly shoved me to the ground and started to run in the other direction. The man in the mask surprisingly left me alone and took off after him. I quickly got back up and ran back to the path, hearing and seeing nothing else. Police arrived only a few minutes after I called, but both men were gone, and from what I know, they still are. I can't say why the other victim pushed me down though. It was most likely an effort to leave me behind so he could escape. I don't blame him, but it was a low move. It makes me feel slightly less sorry for him and whatever he had to endure afterward. What the abductor intended to do is unknown, but him showing no interest in my wallet or belongings makes me feel it was something extremely awful. Ironically though, it was the selfishness of the other victim that both put me in that awful situation and saved me from it.